Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I need this jingle. I need a jingle to bring me in and make me sound more profesh, but I haven't got it yet. So I'm just jumping in with, hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I've got an ex-boss of mine on the podcast. That is not what she's kind of famed for, but I figure that is going to be a draw for some people to laugh at Nick squirming at an ex-boss of his, maybe even referencing some of the things he's done in his work career. So Sophia Windgreen is an incredible woman, and she's going to introduce herself in just a second, but I wanted to tell you a little story because I've mentioned before quite a few times, and I'm sure some of the people listening are going to be people who either work for or have worked for EF. And Sophia was actually the third person in EF that I met. So I met a woman called Ming Chen, who I've referenced before, incredible woman. She was recruiting over in Singapore. She sent me to the Hong Kong office. And in the Hong Kong office, I got to meet some more people to interview with. And I met one of the sons of the owner called Philip Holt, and had this lunch with him. And it was very intimidating. And I didn't really realize at the time quite how big a deal he was. But obviously I knew he was very senior. And then he passed me on to my next interviewer, and my next interviewer was Sophia. And he introduced me saying, hi, Sophia, this is Nick. And we're going to offer him a position in the UK after his MBA. And so the very first word Sophia said to me was like, nice to meet you. That's a good way to start an interview. So from then on, me and Sophia got on like a house on fire, and we had the very good fortune actually to work together for a few years. Sophia hired me into her team for EF High School exchange year, and we did some great work together there. Well, I hope we did some great work together. I think we
did. You were brilliant. And you were brilliant.
So anyway, Sophia, what I'm going to do is pass over to you to introduce yourself, tell us a bit about yourself and where you're at in the world right now, and then we will run on from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how do I introduce myself these days? I'm calling in from Stockholm, just outside of Stockholm, and it's evening. And for the past year or so, I have been on a bit of a professional break, and for the first time in my life, I've had the time to actually be a stay-at-home mom, and that's been incredible. It's never been anything I necessarily went for. But then I was then I had the opportunity suddenly, I think at a time in my life when I really wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And it's been, quite wonderful. And even despite, or even with the pandemic. So I think I've really enjoyed being the one taking the kids to school, bringing them home, having a snack with them, driving them to different activities, and sort of hanging out with my two sons. And then it seems to be a habit of mine to say yes to most things. So I've been drawn into a lot of interesting projects, more sort of professional projects. So during this time, I've also been an advisor and a coach to a few different startups. I've had the fortune to be able to invest in a few companies and sit on a board here and there and work in different quite innovative circumstances. So I do that, and I also have a podcast.
Yes, indeed. Yes, yeah, indeed.
Where a colleague of mine and I, together with guests, discuss careers and equality and bias in the workplace, and that's a lot of fun. Excellent. So we're sort of still colleagues, you and I.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, perfect in the podcast world. There's only a few of them. So you are Swedish, like you said, and you've had quite an unconventional pathway. I mean, you said about stay-at-home mom. I think a lot of Swedish people, the stay-at-home part is a lot around the maternity and paternity leave and things like that. Yeah. But if I'm not wrong, you were traveling and living in lots of different places and all around the world, and didn't really live that super conventional life. So why don't you tell us a bit about that? Like how is your pathway from school, college, wherever you want to start, up to?
Yeah, I think I've always been very curious and keen on adventure in all of its forms, whether it's been traveling to new countries or cultures and sort of diving into challenges at work. And it's been, I think I've been driven a lot by that. I really think it's fun to be exposed to a lot of challenging or just different circumstances. So that drive, I guess, has taken me to a lot of places, career-wise, but also life-wise. And I think so I lived abroad for over 15 years outside of Sweden, and then suddenly decided to go back home. I left Sweden with a suitcase and being almost single, and I returned with a husband and two boys, two sons, and an au pair. The au pair being a necessity for being able to work and have children at the same time for me. So sort of being in Sweden now is in itself quite exciting and interesting, and still a process that I see as, landing and learning in Sweden, and reconnecting with my network and reconnecting with what I like about Sweden. And but yes, career-wise, I have been together with you in the education industry for a long time in this amazing company where we learned so much at EF. And before that, I was more in the media industry, in TV production, film production, media sales, and studios, etc. I did that beforehand, and I have a business degree from the Stockholm School of Economics. And after EF, I have been running a company called Hyper Island, which is also a learning industry company in the digital forefront, which was also very exciting. And now I don't know what's coming next. Let's see.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see what my next sort of full-time adventure will be like.
Well, knowing you, I'm sure it's going to be something epic. I think so. There's a few things I probably should tell anyone out there listening, and thank you again for listening. By the way, I want to make sure I give thanks to the people who bother to sit and listen to these podcasts. I know I've had amazing guests, but it is very cool that you stick with it. So there's a few things I want to tell. Actually, so Sophia wasn't just my boss at one point; she was also my landlord at one point, which is quite funny because we ended up subletting the apartment in Switzerland from her, and also we sort of followed a little bit of footsteps of Sophia. We went off to Hong Kong, and you'd been in Hong Kong, so you set us up with lots of different contacts and things. So there was a lot of very cool things. But I've going back to you, and one of the reasons I really wanted to get you on here actually is because, of course, the theme of this podcast, although it goes off on many tangents, quite a lot, the theme is win building, as you know. And so I am writing a book, which is actually a question you asked me and I never answered. So I'm writing a book on it, and I feel like there's an interesting set of stages and processes that there are to building up to a win and building up to winning something and constructing a win. And I think a lot of people don't really break that down enough and think through those different processes. And something that strikes me is, you mentioned it already, but your drive. I think you have tremendous drive. You also have tremendous presence. And I called you, and I hope this isn't a negative thing. It's very much positive to me. I call you an alpha female. Like you to me are like an alpha female. And that to me is like,
thank you.
Yeah, good. I'm glad it's a positive thing, because in my mind it's very positive. You're this super assertive, very big presence, and you're very smart, obviously, and you have a lot to offer to companies and things. So I really enjoyed working with you for those reasons. But I wanted to kind of dig a bit into your thinking and where that might have come from, and how you've sort of got those traits, or how you've developed those traits, how you feel you've used those traits to your advantage. And by the way, I'm also going to tell you where it, like ask you where it's gone wrong, perhaps, where those traits maybe have let you down. But I wanted to kind of ask the positive first and find out where do you think that sort of that drive, or if you agree it's alpha female or alpha woman, where does that come from? Like when did you start noticing you were like that? Because it is unusual.
I think it must always have been there somehow. I think it must be connected to some level of curiosity, and curiosity and an impatience at wanting more. I know I thought of this a long time ago when someone asked me, and I think I always want anything that's new. I'm interested in, and I want to taste. And this could be seriously a new job, or a new person, or a new yogurt. So it doesn't really. It could be on any level. I'm really keen on trying something new, and then I can always take on more. I want more, and I want faster. So it's like sort of new, more, faster. It's sort of almost in you say inherit? No, it sort of feels like it's built in.
Yeah.
A sort of engine that is kind of out of my control. So it's more me needing to control that, to both protect my time and protect my sanity probably, and so on. So, but it's not something it's not a button that I press on to have that drive. It's more something maybe I need to adjust and fine tune a little bit. So it's probably a personality trait, I think. And then together with that, throughout my years of growing up, I was probably not I wasn't told off as, I was probably more encouraged, and people, either my parents or teachers or people around me liked this about me, liked the curiosity, liked the drive, and maybe liked the way I went about it, and confirmed me in a way. And that must have built a confidence in me. So I think it's a combination of a lot of different lucky factors, probably. The people around me giving me sort of a green a green card and not a red, and sort of helping me forward, probably.
Maybe empowering you a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that I've also felt that it's okay. It's not only okay. It's something that is positive and is perceived as positive where I've been. But I've also had, I think, in my family, strong role models on the female side. So I think also the fact that I've been a female, if you now say alpha female, but that's not always regarded as something positive among other women or other men. It can be something that is quite handicapping in certain cultures or in certain families, I'm sure, or at school and so on. But I've been fortunate to have also a mother and a grandmother who were risk takers and who were kind of pushing, or maybe paving the way rather than pushing me, but more paving the way to, say, yeah, this is possible. You can try this, and why not? And, never mind if you fail. And I had a grandmother who loved auctions. And we would sit. She would bring me with her to auction houses, and we would sit on the front row. And she would encourage me to dare to put a bid, a live bid. So $2, $3, and she would sort of nudge me in the side and say, "Go, girl." And she would whisper, "If you change your mind and you don't want it, I'll buy it from you." So she gave me the carte blanche to sort of go for it, but she had this little protective the safety net for me if I would fail.
Yeah.
Somehow. Yeah, so lots of different things. But she was also an entrepreneur and a very sort of feisty, strong-willed woman, and so is my mother. Not to play down the part of my father, but I think I've had female role models around me also that has given me an extra boost, probably, in terms of it being okay to be the way I am.
Yeah.
Not having to put a lid on my drive or energy for and curiosity for whatever I felt like doing, and so on.
That's awesome. Yes, not sort of restricting your opportunity. I think that's. I mean, there's a lot of. I mean, there's tons of positive things about Scandinavia generally. Of course, especially Sweden as well, in the way in which women have definitely found a lot more empowerment in recent times than in other countries, and I think that and the more equality. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the more balanced paternity maternity, because I think a lot the time that people get to spend off with their kids, I think there's so much to be said for that, both for the positive for the kids but also for positive for people and society, because everyone just accepts that's the way it is, and then they work around that rather than, oh god, she's going to take a year off or something like that. That's kind of, or she's going to take time off, or she's never going to come back. Those sort of statements you and I have both heard people say in various places we've worked, and it's a really sucky culture to be in when there's those male female big divides which culturally hold us back, I think. And it's great to hear that your granny was already there, and then your mom obviously as well empowering you. I'm interested to know though, because in my mind, one of the reasons you've been particularly successful, obviously you've been a leader of people, you've managed teams, and you've managed to get to quite senior levels of obviously extremely senior, because you were managing me. I mean, for goodness sake. No, but you've got good senior positions in companies and things. And I'm wondering, with that, there's a lot of you, I've seen a lot of you, which is very competitive. But that was also because we were working in a very sales heavy environment, and it was very sales driven, and the targets were around sales revenue, etc. Do you think you're very competitive, or do you think the drive and curiosity that you've just described is something you've turned your attention onto, the things that deliver kind of value and opportunity in, for example, sales? Therefore you've become competitive through that route, or do you think you're a very competitive person?
Yeah, I wrote down, actually, because since this is about winning, I was just scratching my head and thinking, I'm not sure that I've had the agenda of winning. It's not the way I've had it in my mind, partly because I don't see myself as competitive at all. So it's really interesting that you say that. But yeah, I wouldn't describe myself as competitive unless it was a job interview where I knew I had to. But yeah, so that's really interesting that you really think that I was competitive when we worked together.
I think I'm fascinated by the competitive nature of people, and I love in sport and things like that. In particular, I'm fascinated by it, and that's part of the reason I decided to write the book, because I think it's not. I used to, because I'm very competitive. I know that, and I hate losing anything. So I'll start a competition for anything. Like, if the kids are doing something, they're 5 and 2, and I'll want to compete with them. So I'm like terrible. But and I recognize that in myself. But I realize that not everyone has that, and it doesn't make you a winner just because you're competitive, and that's why I'm sort of intrigued by it, because I believe you can be a winner and not need to be competitive. And I think and I guess depends how you define winning, but I think for me, it's interesting that you can turn your attention to building a win and be very methodical and process driven about it and strategical without necessarily needing to be hyper competitive about it. You need to be able to do is be prepared to, whatever it is you're trying to win or trying to gain or trying to achieve, you need to be ready to jump in 2 feet and do it. in the end. You need to be brave enough to take the risk to do it. And that take guts, which is not necessarily competitiveness, but it is real emotion and guts that affects you. So
that describes me quite well, I think. Sort of all of that sort of methodical planning and wanting to succeed and wanting to make it right, and some sort of loyalty to the task and being prepared to do almost anything and giving it my all to get it right and get it done. It's sort of, that's a very strong drive in me. And there's some sort of loyalty to in that, to the team, to the task, to the company, to the customer, or whatever it might be, that I have as a very strong sense in my body, basically, and what keeps me awake and energized and happy. I think I like going for that and never giving up and finding new ways and just nailing it.
What are the
so but never. I never went for the glory of the win, and maybe sort of the contrast there is that I almost didn't see it as an option to lose. If you see what I mean. Sort of there's just the goal, which can be adjusted, but the going for it and taking every little route you can take to get there, and having that stamina of almost nerding in on getting there.
I think the perseverance is a super important point. Are you ready? Are you prepared to persevere through to the bitter end and take the hits on the fails? As you mentioned previously about failing, but it's like everyone talks about failing on this podcast, and it's such an important factor in being able to get better at something or deliver performance. It's such an important factor. You've frozen on me. I'm gonna just pause for a second. You still there?
Hey, I lost you a little bit there. Can you repeat what you just said?
Yeah. I paused because I saw that you'd frozen, so I can edit this bit out. Okay, so I'm just going to write down when it happened. So I think
perseverance. You said the perseverance and the failures.
Yeah, so I think the perseverance and the failures that come along with that, they've been referenced a lot, and it's so important that you are able to sort of learn from mistakes, learn from things not happening to be able to get the best results. But I think in your case, I'm really interested by it, because I think when it comes to leadership roles and leading a team to success, whatever the definition of success is, whatever that definition as a team is, that needs to be really clearly put forward and communicated to the team, and everyone needs to be driven behind that in terms of, okay, this is the success, and this is the strategy of how we're going to achieve that success. And then as a leader, you need to be like number one, cheerleading away to get there. And I guess when it comes to sort of business and performance in business, your metrics that you're sort of, judged on become your sort of, it's your direct performance indicators, but it becomes the thing you can get behind in terms of competitiveness, even if you yourself are not someone who's naturally competitive. And I think it's an interesting thing, because when you look at, I don't know, Usain Bolt, probably he's an individual sportsman and he's probably hyper competitive, but he's also, no doubt, extremely persevering in terms of his training, in terms of his work rate, his willingness to sacrifice everything to get to be the best, and the coaching teams around him and everything that goes into his performances, that he's willing to do all of that. It's not just reliant on him really, really wanting to win. It's everything else that goes around it. So I think it's actually being hyper competitive, a bit like what I consider myself, is not actually that useful all the time. I think it's useful in the moment where you're delivering the performance or delivering the execution. It's good to have someone who is just hungry. Like a good salesperson is usually extremely driven because they're hungry for it, they're competitive for it, and they just want to get you the targets. They just get so much energy out of getting those targets. That's useful. But then, standing back and looking at the strategy and working out the ways to get there, and making sure the team are all on board and following that strategy, I think that's a different skill, and it doesn't require that competitive nature necessarily. What do you think to everything I just said there? Over to you.
It takes both sides. I think that maybe one of the reasons we were working together was because you had that competitiveness, and I could see that as part of your skill set and part of your fit, and part of your fit in the team around you as well. So I need to, of course, complement my strengths with other strengths, or sort of make sure that I cover up for whatever weaknesses I have. So I think that it's also in any job really important to match up and sort of hook arms with people who are different from yourself. And that's when you can create some magic in, maybe having that sort of enthusiasm and creativity from some people, and this super strong hunger and competitiveness from some others. And the whole mix together inspires the rest of the people to do their best. And also in a big organization, there needs to be many different role models that can fit your way of doing things. So I think that, some people may then look at you, some people may look at me, some people may look at somebody else in the management team or so and say, that's who I'm going to follow. I'll follow the lead, but I'll have a role model in certain people, or a mentor in certain people who fit my needs. And I think that's why there's never one person really who is... we always talk about sort of the leader and this person at the top, or this person who's at the forefront, the big name. But if you just scratch the surface really quickly, there's never really just one person who does the pulling and the pushing at the same time. I think it's a team of people who inspires the group, so to speak.
Or if there is, his name is Trump, and he's just left office. And it's a disaster. Yeah. I'm sorry for anyone who's listening who's a Trump fan. I apologize, but I couldn't help myself.
And so I think that's another thing. I was talking to a person the other day who was so focused on getting rid of her weaknesses, and I think it's not about that. It's about challenging your strengths, and then making sure you match up with people who cover the rest of the necessary stuff.
Are you familiar with Strengthsfinder? Have you come across Strengthsfinder?
Yes, I have.
So I'm not sure if you were still in EF when it started, but the EF did a big push towards Strengthsfinder as a tool, and it's a tool by Gallup, the big company.
Yeah, I didn't do it, but I've heard about it.
It gives you 34. It has 34 strengths, and it basically ranks them 1 to 34 for each individual, and then you kind of get given your top 5, and that's the idea. Is you work on those top 5 together, and you work out what your team members have and stuff. It's a very positive. I think it's a very positive tool. It has its flaws, like every blooming tool out there. Actually, the second podcast I think I did, or maybe the third, with Marion, she's a Strengthsfinder coach. So is Louisa, actually, my wife, who you know well. It's a good tool, but it works on that principle which you've just described, which is focus on your strengths, not on your weaknesses, and then build up that. But also as a manager, for example, if you have that data available, focus on what your team can bring in terms of strengths, and also how those things work. I mean, it's interesting hearing what you've just said, because my top 5, I think, are off the top of my head, like futuristic, activator, like get things done, futuristic, ideation, like new ideas and stuff, strategy, being strategic, and then responsibility. And I kind of got those other four, but then responsibility, I'm like, what? I've thrown myself off cliffs on a snowboard. Like, that doesn't seem very like me. But I realized it's much more around like this sense of responsibility. Like you said, loyalty before, but I think it's a similar thing. It's like, I really feel the need to deliver, and I know that that's useful for companies, and it's useful for, and hi boss, if you're new boss, if you're listening. Ollie Christian, if you remember Ollie Christian, he's now my boss, so he listens to these podcasts. So so anyway, but I think that trait is a useful trait to companies, because it's this sense of responsibility. I really want to do a good job, and therefore I'm like totally willing to put in the effort because I have that sense of responsibility. It's not that's not the competitive side of me, that's the responsibility side of me.
I think I have a very strong sense of responsibility, and I've had colleagues who haven't had it at all to the same extent, who have been sort of come into a situation and been like, nah, not going to touch this. Someone else can do this. And I'm like, what? I thought we all had, chip in, and where I can spend hours or days or years doing something, because I can see that we can solve it as long as we can, if we pull this together, we can solve it. Whereas some people can just look at something and then walk away and say, nah, let's skip it, and give up. And to me, that's more like giving up. But I think I sometimes need to learn to also just give up on certain things, and maybe not persevere to the bitter end, because maybe that's not always the best use of resources, basically.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? It's like all these frameworks. What it reinforces to me is how difficult it is to see things through other people's perspectives, because we kind of can't help ourselves but think, well, everyone must see it like this. It's obvious, or it's common sense, or they must feel like this towards it, because like, why would you not feel like that? And yet everyone's having their own different experience of life, with their own different set of baggage behind them, and opportunity in front of them, and there's so many complex things going on. And I think that's why the tools are useful, especially in sort of team exercises and things, to sort of highlight those differences and recognize those things. We talked about, I've talked with Luca, another old colleague of ours, and he mentioned about introversion and extroversion. That's a classic. A lot of those two are misunderstood, especially introverts. And in fact, Luca, since our podcast, has commented on that on his social media, about how the way in which
I lost you at classic introvert extrovert.
Yes. I was just saying about the sort of the classic differences between introverts and extroverts. And Luca was saying about how it really is misunderstood how introverts are experiencing life a lot of the time, because they're not necessarily wanting to be like left out of stuff just because they enjoy time to themselves or reflection on their own and things. They actually, like everyone else, they want social interaction. They just, from an extreme extrovert point of view, they want it in a different way sometimes. And I think it's really interesting. And when it comes to what you've just mentioned, it's like that sense of like, how can you not feel like doing this or whatever? But of course, as you also just said, and it's something I've had to learn, is like, often that is the right way to go about it, whatever the opposite point of view is. And we all make mistakes, and we can all be wrong. It's even Trump sometimes. This is going to be my anti-Trump podcast, I've just decided. And he's gone now, finally.
Yeah, have the same hair, maybe.
So I wanted to ask another question about sort of skills, talents, things like that, because you have obviously hired a lot of people in your sort of senior roles, and you've been in lots of different jobs. Mm-hmm. I'm interested to know your thoughts on sort of skills and talents, and how you try to hire people or look for people or source people to take on roles. What do you focus on first? Is it like, do you focus on fit with the company's culture, or the skills for the job, or something, do you look for some other qualities? What are the things you kind of mainly focus on?
Of course, I look at experience. So what have people done? What have they chosen to do? Because that says something as well. Then you can always ask them if it was a choice or not. But where has life taken them, and where has maybe ambition taken them, and what have they learned on the way? So that would also, I mean, I think much more than what they studied, that would tell me what their skills are, I guess. And then, of course, I look at personality in terms of, like you say, fit for the culture, because that's really important. But I think you don't always hire. This depends on what your purpose is with this hire, because sometimes you hire people to be part of a new or an updated or an upgraded culture. You might want to bring in more of a certain culture in order to get the right mix or get the right culture for the road ahead. So I think that, but that goes, of course, a lot into personality. I think attitude is probably one of the things I try to sort of get hold of the most. So, and in attitude, I look at sort of a can-do attitude. I think one of the things I dislike the most is lack of ambition in anything we do. So I guess I think if we're going to do things in life, let's be ambitious about it. If we throw a party, if we make a new office, if we create something, if we have a meeting, or whatever we do, I think there should be a certain level of ambition for it to be joyful and meaningful somehow. And I think I look at people's ambitions as well, and if they are sort of up for the task of making things just a little bit better, because every job is a process of improvement of some sort. It's either it's re-engineering something that has existed for a long, long time, or it's a growth journey, or it's a shrinking journey, or it's a profitability journey, or a quality journey. There's always a movement of the art of perfecting, maybe not to get things to be perfect, but that sort of act of perfecting, that sort of movement is, if you don't like that, you're usually not the right person to work with me, because I like that a lot. And I usually take jobs that are about that journey, even if it's really, really small. I think that should be a mindset, and that's what I see as a certain level of ambition. So I look for that attitude of thinking it can be done, knowing you can do it, so a confidence level, and a joy or the lust for doing it. So I look a lot at that, because I think somebody wise said that you can learn almost any skill, but you can't really retrain on attitude.
Yeah.
And, right? I mean, you can learn almost anything, really. So I love to hire new people, and I love the interview process, and I would prefer to always meet everyone in person. I really like meeting these people who want something. And I have all these odd questions that I ask to try to sort of nail what I'm trying to find out. But I don't know if it answered your question.
I've written down here my question. No, because you did answer my question, and my question to you was then, what I've written is ambitiousness versus competitiveness, because it's, for me, it's, there is what you've just described about needing people to be ambitious. Well, you could reframe that. Well, I could definitely reframe that into a competitive nature. But what do you think to that?
Probably it's just that maybe I don't It's the same drive. There's something about competitiveness, though, that maybe to me has so much to do about straight line winning. Maybe I think and maybe that's why I don't use the term so much, because I associate so much to sports or to games or something, and to others losing, somebody else losing, and to me it's really important to have this feeling of everybody being part of the win. If it's a win, there's something about the word, maybe competitiveness, and it could be that I'm not a native English speaker or whatever, but to me it's much more straight line than taking care of everything in between as well, because it's not only the win, it's not only the sale or the revenue goal, it's the quality, it's the client, it's the people doing it, it's their bloody families. It's like everyone being happy in the process. There's so much more and complexity to winning, I think, or winning in business or in life for that matter. And I think competitiveness to me has a tiny, I mean, I know it's a great trait, but it has a little bit of a negative smell for me.
Interesting.
Why was that? Yeah.
I was told when I pitched my idea about a book to a couple of different people, and, and I was told very quickly that won't work in Norway. They don't like the word win, and for exactly the same reason you
know the title. Yeah.
Someone's going to. But I, in my defense, and I will defend it because I think it's really interesting. You even said it when you were sort of breaking it down. There's so much more complexity to winning, and that's the whole point of what I'm trying to get across in the ideas, because I think there is, and I think people don't understand that about sport. And in fact, I want to ask you a little bit about Elias as well, because maybe I should just get him on the podcast. But your husband, ex-professional sportsman, but there's so much around that when it is very clear parameters for what is a win in that moment and what is not a win in that moment, like winning a game, winning a point, winning a quarter of the game or something like that. But I think you set your wins or set your goals, whatever you want to call it. But I still believe that there is an element of the competition for achieving that goal. And I think the main thing that is important that I have in my book already is there can be more than one winner. And in a lot of different things, and you need to understand that about the game you're in or the competition you're in. You need to understand, can there be multiple winners? What is it that defines your win? So as a business, if you're setting strategy, what is the end goal where we're going to be able to sit back and say, yes, we got it, and is that of course can keep moving as goals can keep moving and things can change, and COVID-19 can come around the corner and hit us all in the ass. but it's what is that? How do we define that, and then how do we move towards it? What will that win be? And I think that's where I defend the word win, but I understand what you're saying, and people are definitely uncomfortable with this idea that others will lose. But also jumping back to what you said, ambitiousness. You're looking for the ambitious person who's looking to step up and improve and looking to be willing to take that opportunity and make it better. Well, everyone who isn't that you didn't hire has lost, because they didn't get the job that they were interviewing for and that they were hoping to get. So they are, by definition, unfortunately, a loser. And it's okay to be a loser, because you're actually failing in that moment to improve yourself. So hopefully you realize, either I don't want to work for a company where Sophia's the boss because she's looking for way too ambitious people, and I'm not that, so I need to look elsewhere. Or I need to actually assert myself a little more and be more ambitious and strive for that. Whichever way you decide to go, those are the things you need to look to adjust. And over time, your attitude will need to adjust if you want to get the job that Sophia was offering, for example.
Maybe I am competitive. I have to think about that a little bit. I like winning. I mean, I like winning. I'm just wondering if that makes me competitive.
I think you're, well,
Let's keep
are you
going.
ambitious? Let's talk about that. Do you think you're ambitious?
Absolutely.
So when do you think, where do you think that ambition comes from? Is that again from your granny and mum influence and that kind of curiosity, or is it something else?
I think it's a part, maybe. I think that's also something that I think I had it. I had probably things came easily to me in school. Things didn't come easy for me in sports, for example. So I totally didn't follow that route. So I followed my strengths, and and there, of course, you've done one thing, you want to try next, and you want to try. I always had this. I was always really keen when I heard about a restaurant. This is even when I was really young, like maybe 10 or something. I heard of restaurants in Stockholm, and I'm from the countryside. I heard of specific destinations, and I heard of things that people spoke highly of. I wanted to try that. I wanted to go there. I wanted to try it out, and so on. And the same thing kept happening. So I heard about a school that was supposedly very good. Then I wanted to go there and try that. And I wanted to try out what best looked like. I wanted to see what best looked like. And I think that's goes hand in hand with that curiosity. But it's, I think, quite natural to want to look at best rather than worst. But that kept me always going for. I had really high expectations of what best was as well. So I've sometimes had a bit too high expectations of things. Unfortunately. So sometimes I've been disappointed traveling all the way to see, I don't know, a restaurant or a school or something, and then it wasn't as good as I had heard, but or at least I didn't think so. But I think that that's part of that sort of ambition. I wanted to try out and see what really good and best looks like. And that, of course, has raised the bar for what I think I need to do myself as well and be somehow. And what I need to do or be to fit into a good circumstance of some sort, I think. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I think it's great. I'm going to diagnose you as psychologist Nick as having competitiveness disguised as ambition. No, I'm just kidding. I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
that's
I'm
good.
just
I
kidding.
can put that down as a new personality trait. Yeah, so I think but I was never, I was never in school like, oh, I have to have the highest grade. Or I failed a lot of exams at business school. It was never a goal in itself to, oh, I'm going to have the best grades when I graduate. Never. And that's why, I mean, I don't see myself as very competitive. As long as I passed and got sort of, as long as I could graduate fully from business school, I was happy with that. So, and maybe that was because I was a little bit lazy and wanted to do so many other things on the side. I had lots of jobs when I was studying. I had lots of activities that I was doing pro bono and so on, kind of going along with my lust for life and trying and things and meeting new people and so on. So I did all of that sort of extracurricularly while just more or less passing the rest in school.
I think you've said the first thing I totally disagree with there. I'm really surprised to hear you say lazy, and maybe you're just using that word to help yourself out or something. But I don't think that's. I don't think you said lazy and wanted to do lots of things on the side, and I had extra jobs and blah blah blah. It's like that's not lazy. That's productive, but just maybe not focused on the task at hand. Maybe procrastinating.
Maybe and then maybe so more but that's, I think, where I go, like, I'm not that why wasn't it important to me to have the highest grade? Was it because I didn't think I could, or was it because I didn't care? It was really important to me to take. So I took a really difficult major because I thought I really need to do something difficult so that I can properly learn financing and accounting and stuff. I could have taken a totally different route and done something much more easy, but I did do something in business school that I thought was hard, but it wasn't important to me to get the highest grades. It was great when I did, but it wasn't a big sense of losing when I didn't. I think that's different than you, maybe.
Well, no, I think the key is, even if you're very competitive, it's what you're competitive in, right? I mean, I was never competitive in academics either, and it was more because I really didn't feel I was very smart. I literally had this hang up until I was in my 30s about not being very smart, because all my academics were not very strong compared to most of my peers around me. And especially when I went to this amazing business school, I was like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I was really out of my depth academically. But then I realized over time, I have other skills, and I have intelligence in people, I think, or I have an understanding at least of what's going on around me with people that is not something that comes naturally to everyone. So I realized that, well, okay, so I maybe can offer something there, and that's maybe why I've been successful in various things. But that, because I think it was because of those things that I wasn't very competitive in that. And I also had my competitive outlet nearly all the way through in sport. Right. So I've kind of I always loved sport and playing sport. So I always had a way of like finding a competitive outlet that gives me that fulfillment. And it's not the only thing that drives me. It's like being competitive is not the only thing. I'm very interested in strategy, and I'm very curious as well, like yourself. And what you've described, I feel like that resonates very strongly with me. This curiosity and ambition to do something better, to take responsibility and take it somewhere new. So I recognize what you're saying, and I don't think you need to be, if you're competitive, you don't need to be, every move you make is like, okay, no, I want the best this, I want the best that, we're now having the biggest TV and that's not big enough. No. And it's you've got to choose your battles, I guess. But I'm interested to know, actually, so I wanted to talk about Elias a little bit, and Elias is a phenomenal guy. So there I can see why you were choosing the best. This guy is gorgeous, giant ice hockey player who's a lovely, lovely man. I can't say enough nice things about him, and hopefully he listens to this. But he is absolutely ace. And but he was, but no, not but.
I lost you at he's a lovely, lovely man.
Okay, yeah, that was it. That was what I said. He's a lovely man. Right, I'm telling you lots of nice things about Elias.
Yes.
Pretty sure it's recorded my end, so he'll hear it. But the thing is, and I said but, and then I was like, wait, I don't mean but. The thing I want to talk about is that he was a professional sportsman. He was an ice hockey player and played at a high level in Boston. Is that right?
Yes, he was. Boston. Yes, he was in Boston Bruins, but played mostly in Providence Bruins, the Farmers League.
Okay. The thing I wanted to ask was, like, how would you compare him in terms of competitive and ambitious, what we've just talked about? And his nature, to me, is, I can imagine him being very competitive because he's been a sportsman. But I also wonder what your thoughts are around that, like comparing the two of you.
So he is extremely competitive, which can be noticed in many different ways. But sort of if you take a very basic way, it's that for a long time, him and I could not play a regular board game together, because I would get so angry at him, ruining the game with his competitiveness, like not at all playing to have a nice, time, only playing to win. And to me, that's like, what? So I would walk away and say, let's do something else. Yeah, because it was all about that. And cheating or, figuring out a way to kick us out or kick me out or something. And it sometimes happens also with the kids. And so, because now we're back to playing a lot of board games, and especially this year, we're playing games all the time. And I think he has to really control himself not to get too competitive with the kids. And I think that there's definitely, he keeps saying, well, we have to give it our best and teach the kids that only if they do their best, they're going to win. And I was like, yeah, but he's 5. How on earth is he going to win? And how will he be motivated if he never gets the taste of winning? So I think we've negotiated in some sort of balancing act where Elias maybe sometimes lets himself lose. And when we play with the kids, and slowly but surely they are picking up, and they have won over him now in many different games, properly, and I think that's great.
Yeah, and he probably thinks it's great too.
I think so. Yeah, but he is very competitive also. So especially sports and games, but I think also in his work, he's extremely focused on the goal and winning and closing. And like he has a very strong engine with almost sort of, I think he's better in very focused tasks where he can really go for the win. Whereas I'm much more sort of, juggling a few things in a more complex things, thinking about different things at the same time. He can do many things at the same time. That's not it. But he's really good when he can just focus and go and win. He's much better than I am when he can get that environment.
I think for me, it's also interesting to reflect on just thinking about what you've just said, and something that I think a lot of people don't realize for those people who are very competitive. I'd say I'm also, although I've not played professional sport, but I think knowing how to fail and knowing how to lose, like taking the loss, like hating losing, hating it and feeling awful about it and having all that, like that chemical release, that's a terrible feeling instantaneously, but then regrouping afterwards and picking yourself up and learning from that and moving forwards. I think that's something which, when people get upset about the word competition and winning and there being a loser and things, it's often good to lose. Like, it's good to have taken a loss. And
or so motivation, you mean, or
for motivating, like talking about your kids. Yes, of course they need to. I think I agree. They agree exactly with what you guys have decided on. Not that you need my permission on how to parent. I'm way behind you, but no, I agree with it. It's like, yeah, they need to taste that win, but they also need to learn how to lose, and kids need to learn how it feels to be not the best, not the fastest. I mean, Leonora's, my 5-year-old, is obsessed with kind of looking at the older kids, and she's like trying to run around with them, and of course they're faster than her, and they're stronger, or they've she's lived in Hong Kong for 2 years where there's not much ice skating in winter, I'll tell you. And now we're out in the backyard, there's a little ice patch where people are skating, and she's upset because everyone else can ice skate. I'm like, they've had a head start. They've had years of ice skating, and they're older than you. So it's interesting, but that shows there's that feeling, and that you got to learn from that. And I guess the key is you can't demotivate someone to the point where you're like, they are then feeling like a failure or they're not good enough, and therefore they never try again. And that's, I think that links into the ambition part as well. It's like, when do you lose your ambition? Is it when you've been battered down and you realize, or you feel like, I'm not going to get this opportunity because it's never going to come my way because I've tried and failed.
Now the kids would say, give it your best. You have to promise me to give it your best, to both of us, to both the grown-ups, because then they know if we really promise that we will give it our best, we're not going to let them lose easily, or we're really going to try to win. And then if they win, they can feel the sweetness of success. So I think we're doing okay with the kids. But I think with the back I think back to him, the difference between him and me, with him, in my view, being much more competitive than I am. I think he really needs to win. He really needs them to keep up his motivation, and he needs a win now and then. And we all need wins now and then. But I think I have a tendency to be more positive in general. I always I have a tendency to look at the glass half full, and we're almost there is my mindset. We're almost there all the time. Whereas he is much more black or white, sort of either you won it or you lost it, and going much more back and forth, where I keep myself motivated with a lot of stuff like, today we were good enough. Or we almost got there, and I'm like motivating myself with much more of that kind of stuff, but it might be the same things we're doing. It's just that the way we're taking I rarely have like a rubbish day, and I rarely think that I'm surrounded by idiots, and I don't have that much feeling of failure or darkness. I'm much more like, there's light at the end of the tunnel,
That's the beautiful thing about you, actually, Sophia. It's the optimism. I think you are a very optimistic, very positive person. Yeah. I'm also, I think, known to be a positive person and optimistic. Yeah. But I have to say, I can't say honestly that I don't have shit days, and I feel like the world's getting at me a little bit sometimes. But I'm definitely inspired by you for that, and I liked a lot having that opportunity to work with you for those reasons. Actually, I mean, I think I always liked when I had bosses that were challenging me, and but were themselves ambitious and trying to drive things forward, because then I could jump into line with that, because of all the things we've discussed. It's much easier for me to do that. I think rarely, in fact, in my life have I had. I've been very fortunate. I've had a lot of great bosses. So rarely have I had any bosses that have done, have sort of beaten me down or made me feel like that. But that might also be linked to my optimism. I don't know. It's difficult to say, right? But just to wrap up, because I think we're over an hour now, actually, and I hope I've just realized, because I took ages to get started with all the tech stuff. But just to wrap up, Sophia, I wanted to sort of ask you your thoughts on what would you say are the most important skills or talents that you're trying to give to your kids for their future success? I won't say future wins, because of what you've described. Your feelings on that word.
Kids for their future.
Oh no.
Yeah, but I looked at it. So what are the skills or things I want to give to my kids for their future? So first of all, I try to kind of transfer to them this feeling of how bloody grateful we must be for where we are and what we have and where we've come to somehow. I feel that feeling is very strong with me, sort of, and it has been for as long as I can remember. But I think the older I get, the more amazed I am at how fantastic my life is and how fantastic it has been. It's really been the adventure I was kind of looking for, and it still is. So I think since they are so darn privileged, I think it's important for them to also realize that, so that they themselves can both have that feeling of thankfulness, because that, I think, creates happiness as well. And hopefully a feeling of wanting to give, maybe not back, but at least pay things forward. And I think that's a great starting point for human beings to be. It's a good place to be in to start with. But then I think it's really important that I show them the importance of hard work and the importance of how much time it takes to make money, and how hard it is to make money. So my kids went off. They took the bus on this last Friday night they went to go shopping because they were going to cook us dinner on Friday, and they were going to make tacos. And they called probably 7 times from the supermarket to ask different questions and so on. But they came home and they made us tacos. And my son gave me the receipt, and he had our credit card with him and everything, and paid for it. But he gave me the receipt and he said, "Mom, it was quite expensive. It was a lot of." He said it was a lot of money, because it was a lot of money. And I told him, yeah, because compared to the type of money he spends, he never buys a Friday night dinner, right? But I think that to show him the value of money, the value of work, and the different type of pay that you can have depending on what kind of work you do and the effort and so on, all of that I try to really deliberately show them already now at a rather early age. Both because I want them to be thankful for where they are, where they have. Where they are in life, or they're lucky to be born in this family, basically in Sweden at this time, and so on. But also because I think it's really important to have that awareness for the rest of their lives, if they are going to at all maintain this or any other quality of life, level of quality of life. So those things I talk to them about a lot. And about helping others who are less fortunate and so on. So that I think values, I guess, are really important to me to bring to the kids. But I think back to ambition, I like, they pick up things, they pick up that we light the candles before we sit down at the table. I try to, if we have a Sunday night dinner, I want them to know how to make the table with napkins to have the right touch.
And they can be butlers.
They can be, exactly. But I think that I think they, of course, they look at what we do, and they pick up different things for sure. These 2 kids, but I really enjoy when I'm able to have conversations with our 10-year-old about when he thinks about what he's going to do for a living and how he debates these different thoughts in his head. Like for a very long time, he was going to be a farmer. He was totally set on being a farmer and then potentially having a side job as a fisherman. But then when I asked him what he was going to farm and what he was going to grow, he said, potatoes or something. And then when he started to go shopping himself, he realized potatoes weren't that expensive. And he started to learn a little bit about, pricing and cost and stuff. And then he said, I'm not sure it's going to work out for me, this potato business. so it's, and that, it might work out really well, but it's just interesting to have those conversations with the kids, I think.
I think that is beautiful, and it's a beautiful way to wrap up, Sophia. I love the energy you bring, and I encourage anyone who speaks Swedish or a Scandinavian language, actually, check out the podcast. The podcast is called
Rat Race.
Rat Race, yeah. And apparently there's an episode in English, so I'm going to actually link that one for the audience. I'm going to find it and link it. And if you want more information on Sophia, then you can follow her on LinkedIn as well. She's an awesome character. Thank you so much, Sophia.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for all your fantastically generous comments about me.
I mean it, though. I think
booster. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it comes from the heart, because I really enjoyed working with you, and I'm super honored that you came on the podcast. So thank you so much. All the best, Sophia. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.